But otherwise, just hello. Welcome. I'm happy to be sitting here with you all, and it's another day in this turning world, bringing us just more and more to deal with. Um, this week, I've been kind of thinking of we are 3 days out from the equinox, spring equinox. And this is traditionally a time in the lineages I've grown up in, of pause, of reflection, and of really taking note of what is right there in front of me, right? We've made it through the longer months of winter. Our food has lasted, we've gotten through the cold. And now there's a moment to kind of take stock, see what's left, see what needs repair, see what kind of, what roof part is leaking that we haven't really had time to look at yet, but now there's the space. So, this kind of equinox feeling as we move towards that, I think it's Tuesday, the 19th. Um, for me has been one of, okay, let me look at myself, look at my situation, and see just what's been going on. Another way to check in. As spring starts, there tends to be this almost atmospheric pressure, right? To get busy, to get going, to be like, okay, it's time to, like, I don't know, wind up somehow. The leaves are coming back earlier than ever, might I say. So even more tricky that it's like warm and things are blooming, at least here in Chicago. Late February and early March was way warmer than it should have been. And so all these signs around us can be a little bit overwhelming, right? It's just like being overwhelmed with stimuli. There's just a lot going on. The equinox, this kind of moment of balance where the day is just as long as the night, where we have just as much light as we have darkness, where we can be just as close to the darkest day of the year as we are to the brightest one, to the longest one, right? We're living in that liminal space where we're kind of, pulling together the year, acknowledging that this time system is just what we're making up, right? The days they lengthen and they shorten, and still we find ourselves in this perfect little equal day. And even with that, it never quite is a perfect day, right? No day is perfect and equal. So even with, us putting so much importance to, okay, look, there's this one day where it's half and half and it's so beautiful. That is beautiful. And it doesn't have to go any one way. It doesn't have to be monumentous. You don't have to all of a sudden realize your greatest, like what you missed out on New Year's. It doesn't have to be that sort of energy pushed into Equinox, which I often have found in at least my circles. And so for me this week, this approach towards balance is one not of leveling, of finding a 50-50 of a half and half day, but of finding, if I have scales, right? Balancing them can mean making them, like, right, there's two scales and I'm putting stuff, it can mean making them level, but going beyond that, just playing with scales, seeing what is 80 and 20, right? What is investing some of myself here and divesting there, not trying to make everything so transactional. I don't know, I'm getting lost in this metaphor, but there's something too exciting to me about shattering my idea of 50-50 being, half and half, this sort of transaction. I rest, then I play, right? I work, then I go out, and trying to find that molding point where my work is playful, it can still be work, but it's playful. There's play in it, right? My play has labor because I'm learning how to be relational. I'm learning how to, like, if I play with somebody, right? I play with a baby, right? That I watch all the time. I'm in their playroom right now while they're out on a walk with everybody else. And that's like learning how to be a person again every time. Every time they have an outburst, I have to relearn and drop everything that I'm trying to unlearn, right? And so, all that to say, as we move into this practice and we move into this week of equinox, uh, the whole week is a holiday in the Jodo Shinshu, in a lot of Japanese traditions, called Ohigan, which means crossing the other shore. And there's a kind of story about it where there's, if you'll, humor me for it's been a while since I've told the Zen story, so I feel like I've earned it. But there's someone running, right? We always drop into the thick of a story with a Zen story. So there's someone running, running, running for their life. And they look back and there's hordes of angry beasts behind them, a bunch of like robbers and people who want to take their things. And so they're running as fast as they can to try to get away. They're running up a hill and they've got a good bit of distance, but they can tell the group is gaining. They maybe 5 minutes left and they'll surely be caught. And so as they get to the top of the hill, they start to go down and they know they've got a minute or so before the horde gets to the top, right? So they have a minute or so of time to stop, think, and maybe hide, maybe try to do something else because they know running is not going to do it. And so they divert, they find a different path, and they come up upon this giant, like, bank of water, right? And so this is they see and they say, okay, this is my like chance. I have to get across this water. There's a tiny narrow path going across the water. And then the people, the hordes are snarling behind them, coming closer. On one side of the path, flames rising like waves, licking into the air, leaping, intense. The other side of the path, really treacherous water. So there's like a big storm of water, big storm of fire. We've been working with rivers of fire and water, so we're coming back to that. And so as they approach, they look behind them and they see the horde. They know, and the horde knows that it's good they're going to go across, and for some reason they can't. And they start to try to convince the person, "Oh no, stay. We won't hurt you. We won't hurt you. We won't eat you. No, 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 just stay here. We're not going to do anything." You know. But you can see the drool dripping off their fangs, and you can hear the growl in their stomach. He's food. So instead, he hears just some sort of soft call across the water. And he can't even quite make out what the words are, but the feeling inside him starts to direct him across the shore. He decides, I'm going to die one way or another, whether it be here to these beasts, whether I fall into the fire or the stormy water, or whether I cross the shore and there's monsters over there waiting. There's no clear path or right choice here. And so he just starts to walk across the water. And the story ends there, of course. We never get to know the bow tie at the end with these. But for me, thinking of, and there's lots of ways to tell that story, but those are the basic ways it always goes. For me, thinking of choosing to walk across that little land bridge, choosing to go to the other shore, to go forward, is one of steadfastness, of perseverance, and really what we work on here a lot, or what I work on with y'all, is self-trust, right? Is letting yourself lead the way. He knew he couldn't trust what was behind. There was no certainty before them across, but they could trust their own 2 feet. They could trust their ability to go forward and to meet whatever would come next, and to leave this behind, to not choose to go back to the familiar horde where he knew how he was going to die there, right? Ripped apart, whatever, whatever. Dramatic sense story. But instead, going into the unknown, going into that other day was what he chose. And so take of that what you will. But for me, I think, especially in Ma Harriet practice and in any sort of revolutionary work, liberation seeking, like pursuit, it can boil down to as simple as that. Do I trust the step before me? Do I trust myself to take a step forward, to keep going, to not be paralyzed, to keep feeling, to stay open? As people from various marginalized identities and just living through an apocalyptic world, it can be hard to want to be here. It can be hard to want to be in this body and to show up for every single moment, that every single expression, every single change, right? And even in wanting to choose to live each day can be a battle for so many of us. And so this story I always come back to as life or death is not dependent really on, I can't control life or death based on what I do. I can only come home to this moment and come home to myself so that I may arrive at the next moment as whole as possible, right? I can arrive in that moment fully trusting myself. And it feels scary sometimes to dive into that kind of logic because it really forces me to examine my lack of control. That I can't just do good things and good things will happen to me. I can foster good community and I can, all those things are still true. I'm not saying it's not worth it to be loving, but there is no guaranteed outcome besides the next moment that will arise. This moment will fall, the next will arise. That moment will fall, the next will arise. That's the only truth I've found, one of the truths I've found, been taught. And so, as we think of that just chain of arising moments, this chain of breaths that we take together, the impossible start or the finite starts to lose its concreteness, right? Now, tomorrow, yesterday, they become more labels and guidance points for, like, okay, let me use my own experience as what I base the next one off of, how I interpret it, and how I integrate the people around me, my community's experience. Time is not something to race against anymore. It's something to settle into. It's your own heartbeat, knowing what it feels like at rest. That's knowing time to me. If I can catch my breath, hear it being too fast, that's what hurrying is to me. That's what feeling late is. It doesn't matter the time on the clock, it's that panic or that settling in that makes time make sense for me at least. So today we'll do a short practice, whatever that means. It could feel like forever to you, it could feel quick. On my more boring days, I'm sure this feels very long, a lot longer than an hour, but we'll move into just a couple breaths. And my invitation today is to move not even move. Listen for your own time, like you're listening to a song, trying to find the one, right? Like you're hearing a beat go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Whatever that beat is in your body, whatever the shift, 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 whatever that beat is, breath, breath, scratch, scratch, settle into it and let that guide how you move through this practice, if possible. Or if none of that resonates, let's just breathe. So let's take a deep breath in together. Let it all out. And take a moment to come into your seat. Find a posture that feels sustainable, knowing that that can change. You might notice the sensations in your low back, hips, and glutes, relaxing or stretching to settle in wherever you sit or lay. Perhaps you take a moment to feel the air coming in, fill your chest and belly, your lungs expanding in all directions like a balloon, and then gently exhaling, perhaps getting a little wiggle in the shoulders, a little roll of the neck. We'll take a deep breath in, let it out. In, out. Deep breath in, out, in, out. Last deep breath in. Relax the shoulders, relax everything around that in breath, and sigh it out. Find a normal pace and rhythm. Before we move into our main practice, let me check the bells because it says it won't turn on live sound, but can you hear this? No. Okay. And then can you hear this? Yeah, perfect. We're going a cappella. I can tell by your face. We're going a cappella. Thank you for the feedback. And thank
I
you in
was
the chat.
trying to concentrate. I was like, do I hear it or not?
Yeah. No, I'm on my partner's computer and it's a little bit different than mine, so acapella it is. But today, in honor of the equinox and our story, let's find ourselves at that shore. Perhaps we take a seat. You can imagine sitting on kind of a rocky bank. We feel no pressure from a horde behind us. We're just by ourselves today, at least in physical form. But in front of us, there's a small, narrow path of earth. To the left, leaping flames, fire, going, raging. To the right, waves crashing like tsunamis, almost whipping themselves up into tornadoes before they splash again. We feel both the heat reaching out to us, warming our face, and also a mist coming off the stormy waters. We might stand 20 or so feet away from the start of this path, feeling our feet against the ground, supported. And before we make any choices, before we feel pressure to do anything, just take a few deep breaths in and out. And we invite our ancestors, our guides, our community. We invite Mother Harriet into this space, breathing deep into the deepest part of ourself and sighing out. Join me in this prayer. Please let me know your strength. Feel your voice in mine. And slowly, whether from the smoke above the flame side of the waters or perhaps gently around us, we feel a warmth. Whoever we are asking for arrives to share in this space and breath and moment with us. Let us know that we are not alone. As we move into our mantra, we might wonder what crossing the shore means to us. What does it mean to go beyond? To abandon any hope of a savior or a singular leader to free us all, but to rely on what we have around us, to what's here right now, to go beyond thinking, I'll be safe on the other side of the shore, and to trust in thinking, I am not safe here, so I deserve to move. The difference between those two. Knowing you are worth the freedom, not expecting it to be anywhere else, but exactly where you are. And so we can take a deep breath in, let it all out. and perhaps we cross, chanting as we go. Ga te ga te para ga te ara sam ga te bodhi swaha. Gati gati para gati para samgati 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 bodhi swaha. Take a moment to feel, bask in that own vibration that you produce. Perhaps we've made it about halfway through the path. One side heat, the other side stormy waters, and yet we're here solid on this little patch of earth. And, we say communal prayers all the time, but there's really no difference between an individual and a communal prayer. And so today we might say individual prayers for our whole community. As we stand here, we might, to ourselves or even out loud, think, wish, pray. May I be free. May I trust in my experience of liberation. May I trust in my aspiration to be free. May this deep longing and yearning for connection, for joy, for ease, for true justice, may it break my heart in two. And within those pieces, may the rejoining be created by my dreaming, my collective dreaming of a just and free world. May my allowing my heartbreak to permeate my entire being, become a light, a yearning that just pulls me closer and closer and closer towards where my path goes. And so we move towards the other shore. We put one foot in front of the other. If we have no feet, we put one hand in front of the other. We use aids and tools. Our ancestors lift us up and carry us. But however we go, in this body, alive, within the belly of the beast, or martyred under the rubble, we go forward, pulled by that same thread of liberation, that same energy that Mother Harriet used to free herself again and again. Yes, she freed other slaves when she went back, other enslaved people, but she's freeing herself again and again when she goes back and proves that freedom is true. So may we have that strength. May we remember this freedom. We might just take a couple deep breaths, noticing, checking in. How do I feel right now? What do I need? And I'll type our spiritual Today we'll be singing We Shall Not Be Moved. And as we cross this shore, if you don't want the visual, feel free to cast it out. But if you're using the visual, this one at least, or any shore-based one, as we reach that other shore, we'll find the edge of a forest. So just a little bit of sand, a little bit of rockiness, and then a line of trees. Whatever feelings are there are yours to find, but that's the visual we'll kind of play with. So take another deep breath, settling back into whatever posture feels good for the next, 5-10 minutes. We can reintegrate ourselves into our little fiery, stormy lake, feeling that heat, that mist, hearing those crackling flames, the crashing waves. But we've walked far enough where now the end is in sight. The parting of this tiny strip of land is visible. And we can start to see just the edges of a forest ahead. And we go towards it. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved. Like a tree planted by the water, we shall not be moved. And before we go into repetitions, just that one refrain. What does it mean to be not moved by the fire and the water and still moving forward? Let's hold all juxtaposition and contradiction and still 6 or 7 minutes or so with this song. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved. Like a tree planted by the water, we shall not be moved. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved. Like a tree planted by the water, we shall not be moved. We shall not be moved. Like a tree planted by the water, we shall not be moved. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved. Like a tree planted by the water, we shall not be moved. 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 Like a tree planted by the water, we shall not be in and out. I just let a few more little sonic shouts out for yourself. For me, I like to breathe in and just ah, fill myself up with my breath, and then I just let it all go. Thank you so much for your practice today, for joining me, and for breathing together. That's all for me. If there's any check ins or check outs, I hope you take some time to just breathe after we close this out and check in with yourself. What do you need? What feels right now? And I hope you feel safe enough to trust yourself. And also, I believe it. How is everybody today?